Ta-da! I've noticed something about the video game industry when it comes to sequels. Many times, we get new IPs that have great ideas, but have a lot of rough spots that keep them from being instant classics or aging well, only for the developers to listen to the feedback and refine the formula to make a work of art that surpasses the original in almost every way. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but The Evil Within 2 is one of those sequels. So how did Tango Gameworks get their absolute mess of a first outing back on track to break into the 80s club? Well, let's find out. Set 3 years after the events of the first game, we find ex-detective Sebastian Castellanos washed out at the bottom of the bottle, only to be approached by Julie Kidman, who tells him his long-lost daughter Lily is still alive. It turns out the organization Kidman works for, Mobius, abducted Lily with a house fire as a cover-up and used her for their experiments with their own STEM system, the simulation that was used by the antagonist of the first game. With nothing left to lose, Sebastian agrees to plug himself into the organization's system to find Lily, who's gone missing within the simulation. Along the way, Sebastian encounters several Mobius agents who were sent in to find Lily, but were overwhelmed by a new breed of monsters and several new antagonists using the STEM simulation for their own nefarious deeds. With the whole simulation gone to literal hell, it's up to Sebastian to work with the survivors to overcome the threats, while also dealing with his personal demons if he's to save his daughter. Right away, the story makes the correct decision with its lead. In the first game, Sebastian was practically an empty slate and simply an observer to a twisted and disjointed collection of horror movie sets without the real cohesion that makes a story, well, a story. Here, he is a real character, and not just a character, but an actual protagonist. He has a personal goal and undergoes actual character growth in this outing. I'm honestly amazed how far the story has improved from the mess that was the first game that it makes you wonder if this game was actually made by the same team as the first. Wait a minute. Darkness twisted me.
Well, that explains a lot.
And believe it or not, the improvements aren't just with the story. The largest departure from the first game is the town of Union. Instead of the game being a linear trek through horror cliché levels put together like mismatched Legos, the gameplay of The Evil Within 2 revolves around a handful of small open world sections strung together by linear story missions. You can explore the areas for resources, upgrades, collectibles, and undertake side missions given by the Mobius agents in their safe houses. Within the safe houses, you can use the coffee maker to fully heal yourself, and use the mirrors to transport yourself to your room. This location acts like the save center from the first game, with some additions. The green gel for character upgrades and keys for randomized safes return from the first game. You also collect red gel that you use to unlock tiers within the revamped character upgrade menu. Instead of collecting generic components used solely for crafting crossbow bolts, the crafting system has been expanded greatly. Throughout your playthrough, you'll collect resources like gunpowder, nails, pipes, and other components to craft ammo and health items at the bench. But you can also craft these items out in the field, but the ammo crafted this way will cost more resources while healing items remain the same. The other resources you'll collect are weapon parts, which you'll use to upgrade your weapons instead of the green gel. Lastly, you'll collect high-grade weapon parts to unlock weapon upgrade tiers, and you'll occasionally go out to collect specific weapon parts to repair broken weapons you find. Another addition to your room is a shooting range where you can participate in a number of challenges for varied rewards. And lastly, there's a slide projector that you use to view the special collectibles you find while you converse with Kidman over the comm. And you'll be rewarded with a container of gel by the friendly office pet for each slide you view. Overall, I felt the structure of the game benefited greatly from the small open world areas as it allowed you to go at your own pace between the mandatory story missions. However, there's a few small flaws within this level structure. There isn't a fast travel system between safe houses. Instead, to progress to other open areas, you manually travel to specific terminals which transport you to an underground area that you go through to get to other terminals that bring you to the other open areas of Union. But what's frustrating is that there's no way back to previous areas, as some are used later in the story. So that means if you missed a collectible or two from a previous chapter, you won't be able to go back to pick them up without reloading a previous save many hours prior.
Oh, come on!
The Evil Within 2 controls almost exactly like the first, specifically with the control layout of the previous game's DLCs. But thanks to a better engine, the controls are a lot smoother. You can walk, sprint, crouch, activate a flashlight, melee, enter cover, mantle over objects, and aim your weapons. You will acquire a handgun, shotgun, sniper rifle, the Warden crossbow now with 6 different bolts, an assault rifle, and even a flamethrower in the late game. You will also acquire variations of the handgun and shotgun throughout the game. When you bring up your inventory menu, you can select which variant you want and assign it to the D-pad. You can pick up one axe at a time and keep it in your inventory to be used as the same one-use kill on most enemies. Meanwhile, you can store a total of 5 bottles to be thrown as distractions, and there's even an upgrade where you can use a bottle to escape from an enemy's grapple. What's new with the controls is the communicator. You can bring up the device to home in on signals to investigate on the map for resources and activate resonance points for lore bits. This time around, hiding has been removed and you no longer collect matches to burn corpses. When an enemy is staggered, you can stomp on their heads to finish them off this time. The enemies this time are the Lost, who aren't dissimilar from the Haunted. You have standard ones who only scramble towards you, while occasionally having axes that they either swing or throw at you. Then we have more powerful ones like the Hysterics, who won't die to a single stealth attack. Instead, it's better to take care of them with a single sniper round to the noggin. Other notable ones include Gluttons that are basically boomers, the Lament which acts as an alarm and drains your stamina if it spots you, Spawns which act like dogs and are best taken out with shotguns, and Disciples which periodically set themselves aflame, which means you need to time their stealth kills perfectly. You also have a few bosses that reappear as enemies in the open world. The Guardian is a buzzsaw swinging tank made of dismembered limbs that you need to destroy its heads to take down. And we have the Harbinger, which is a flamethrower enemy that appears in the late game. When you're out in the open world, you'll make decisions on whether it's worth it to engage enemies at the expense of your resources. Killing enemies will net you primarily green gel and occasionally crafting materials, but other times you might end up spending more resources to take care of your enemies than you planned. And this is where stealth comes in. In the previous game, stealth felt tacked on because of how the levels were structured to be linear treks with scripted ambushes. But here, stealth is highly encouraged, so you'll need to keep an eye on your ammo and resources as you progress. Although, since this is an open world, the enemy AI can be fooled and can be pulled out of their alert states rather easily for simple stealth kills. I played the game on normal difficulty, so my experience swung between barely having enough ammo at the end of a fight, and having plenty of ammo thanks to my conservation techniques. So I imagine harder difficulties will have you scraping by and more reliant on stealth. And on a final note with the gameplay, I can't say I had a bad boss encounter. Each boss was designed very well and felt fair. For presentation, much like the gameplay and story, it is a vast improvement over the game's predecessor. Instead of using the raw id Tech engine, Tango decided to create the STEM engine powered by id Tech instead. The result is a much more optimized and beautiful presentation. The game ran at a smooth 60 FPS at max settings with no real technical hitches, save for the handful of visual and animation glitches here and there. Lighting and textures are heavily improved, and the facial animations are now high grade to accommodate the much improved voice acting. For the environments, instead of throwing in all the horror cliches into a hodgepodge montage, The Evil Within 2 instead focuses on 3 horror themes: photography, inferno, and slime. Story levels are well paced with a much better atmosphere and tension, especially in the early levels. The music felt like the standard horror notes for most of the game, but I will admit that the tunes playing during the final level were very well done in conveying the desolate and remorseful emotions for a rather well done finale. In the end, I've really enjoyed my time with The Evil Within 2. It managed to surpass its mess of a predecessor almost to the point of making the first game irrelevant. My first playthrough of this game took me around 17 hours to finish, and once again, that mileage can be extended thanks to the good graces of New Game Plus. And to be honest, I might consider doing that sometime in the future, especially with the collectibles I stupidly missed in my first playthrough. But as I'm on a personal schedule to finish more games before a certain date that's coming up, I'm going to have to move on for now. With that said, The Evil Within 2 gets my rating of definitely worth a try. Alright, 2 of Tango Gameworks' inventory are done and dusted. But I believe it's time to take a detour for something that must be finished before the big release date. Which something is that? Well, let's just say I've no one to blame but myself for what I need to do. I'll let you put the pieces together. Until then, thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. See you next time!